Okay, guys, just to make sure you have everything down from the other day, right? The basic ways, right, to show the triangles of congruent that we worked with were those four. And I say, you know, obviously there's five, right? There's HL, but remember that last one was a very specific situation. So if you put it on there, make sure you did it like off to the side, or made it very clear that the fifth way can only be done in right triangles. Like it's technically side-to-side angle one, but it's the angle has to be a 90-degree angle for it to work 100% of the time. Okay, and everything we're focusing on still today is basically going to be, here are two triangles, decide whether or not they're congruent, and then give a reason why. And your reason for two triangles being congruent is one of these. Now, the common properties thing, remember I said, that just gets you to the point of picking one of these. Like the common properties allows you to pick one of these. But things that are on that common property list don't say two triangles are congruent. Like you should never say these two triangles are congruent because they have vertical angles. Or these two triangles are congruent because they have a reflexive side. Something like that. The whole vertical angles, reflexive, the alternate interior, all that stuff is just leading you to one of these things. Okay? Just always keep that in mind where you're doing this. You should never, if I'm saying my proof, we're working on proofs today. If your proof ever says something like, are these two triangles congruent? Do not end it with vertical angles are congruent, or alternate interior, perpendicular lines, or something like that. Okay, now, what you should have already, draw it back here for a second. I don't remember the order, but you should have vertical angles on there. We already did, right? We did the thing with the vertical angles. Then you had the parallel lines. Okay, the other things up here, there's probably like two other main things that I want to give you guys, put on there. The last two are going to be formed more of the idea of you're going to be given something, and from that giving you automatically should go to your diagram and mark things off, such as given a, do midpoint first. So like it would actually say in the given, like point A is the midpoint of segment BC or something like that. And the only reason, guys, this word should ever appear in any of your proofs with the whole triangle is if it actually says in the given you have a midpoint. You stating that there's a midpoint, like if you found out it is, it's not a big deal if you actually state it that way. So if you're given a midpoint, understand, midpoint, remember, was in the middle, so it creates what? Like if I said, there's my segment. If I said B is the midpoint, what do you know about those two segments? They're congruent. Okay, so if you're given a midpoint, you should automatically go to your picture, and on the picture, you should mark two congruent segments. Okay? The same thing goes if you are given, a segment bisect. Okay, same thing. Now, the reasoning behind this, like if you go there and you see that you've got two segments congruent, your reasoning is going to be whatever word they give you. If they give you midpoint, you say it's definition of midpoint. If they give you it's a segment bisector, you just say it's definition of segment bisector. That's the thing that told you to mark it congruent. All right? So, and for most cases, you'll probably see them in pictures like this. Like if I gave you, I had given C is the right, like if that was given to you, if I said, all right, C is the midpoint of that segment right there, okay? If I said that, which two segments would have to be equal to each other?
Andy.
Wait, which one? AC and CE. All right, now here's the thing. This is a big mistake. The only thing I'm saying right here is I know C is the midpoint of that segment. Does it automatically make it the midpoint of the other segment? No. Only use the ones that are given to you, guys. Okay, don't assume it's the midpoint of both of them. That's like a huge mistake. That mistake also happens with bisectors. Another thing they could say with this, like to get you the same kind of result, would be if in the given they said something like segment BD bisects segment AE. Okay, either one of those would give me the exact same result on that picture. Like both of them were talking about splitting a segment in half. The only difference is when you write out your statements, because the result of both of these should be a statement going AC is congruent to CE. The difference is here you would say, for your reason for that, you would say definition of midpoint. Over there would be definition of a bisector, because of the difference in the wording. All right, even though it gets you the same result, the wording's a little tiny different. Another thing you could probably add, you could probably put this as A and then maybe B thing. We'll do this as like 4B. And this is if you're given an angle bisector. Okay, so same idea though, right? Because bisect, from now until the end of the book, I told you, always means it cuts in half. Most of the cases where you'll see an angle bisector is with a picture like this. And they'll give you something saying like BD bisects angle ABC. Okay, so again, the whole idea would be, look, you've got an angle being bisected, that means it cuts into two congruent parts. And the whole idea for congruent triangles is to match up things that are congruent to each other, like segments and angles. So this gives you a real quick way to get a pair of angles that are congruent. All right, so if I started this one and matched up with this picture, like if that was my given, the only angles I knew would be congruent would be those two, because angle ABC is that one. This line is bisecting it, so those two are congruent. All right, so in terms of a statement here, like your statement would be something like angle ABD. Okay, and your reason would be, what do you think the reason would be for that? What do you think? Let me guess, come on. What was it? Yeah, it would be definition of a bisect. Okay? Another thing with this, just remember, it bisects the top angle. That's the only angle they said it bisects. It doesn't say anything at the bottom one. Don't assume that since it's splitting this one in half, it automatically does to that one. Okay? It's not necessarily a true statement. All right? Only use the ones that are given to you. Don't go beyond this. The last one I'll probably point out for now that you think of would be you're given perpendicular lines, okay? If you're given perpendicular lines, guys, that the progression of this is still going to be the same as what it is on the first page you had, right, where I said here's your common progressions and stuff. So if you're given perpendicular lines, like automatically you should say what kind of angles are formed with perpendicular lines. Like if I've got two lines that are perpendicular, what kind of angles are formed? right angles. So you would say that in this case, probably 2 angles are right angles. And then the difference is probably going to come in the step after that, whereas on the sheet where we were talking about the stuff last chapter, I would have said, look, perpendicular lines make right angles, and right angles are 90 degrees. Whereas right now, with the topic we're dealing with congruent triangles, I want angles to be congruent. So once I know they're right angles, I can just say those 2 angles are congruent. Okay, so this one actually, if you've got perpendicular lines, there's probably going to be 2 statements that come one after another. Okay, because this would be the starting point. This would be one statement. That'd be another statement directly from that whole given thing. Okay, so a very common one, picture. And if you notice, guys, a lot of these pictures are overlapping between these. Like vertical angles would have matched up with the midpoint one. All right, I could have probably done like a reflexive on that angle bisector. Same thing here, I would stub a reflective. So all these are going to start overlapping with each other. Give me 3 other letters. Sorry. H, Q, what? L. Okay. So in this case, like if I did, I gave you AQ is perpendicular to HL. My natural progression of things would go, look, I know they're perpendicular. Perpendicular lines create right angles. So I would go up to the picture. Oh, there's the right angle. There's the right angle. And I would say, I would have to state in the proof that, well, since I know the right angles, now they're congruent. What that would do is that would give me my pair of angles, right? Because I'm looking for pairs of angles and pairs of sides that are congruent. Okay, so it would be something like, I'm just going to number 1 and 2. So statements that would come directly from that would be like angle 1 and angle 2 are right angles, and then angle 1, here's angle 2. Like this would be statement like 2 and 3 maybe in your proof. And your reasons for these would be the same reasons I had on the front side of that paper. Like this is, the first one would be definition of perpendicular lines. The second one would be just saying all right angles are congruent. Okay, and that's just a natural thing. Like majority of the time, if you're given perpendicular lines, that's going to happen. Like there might be a case within the whole realm of triangle congruency proofs that if I gave you perpendicular lines, you would have to go through the whole saying I've got 90-degree angles. But that would be if you needed an equation or something. Okay, so out of like the 5 things, I mean technically there's 6 because I did 4 A and B, even though they're the same subject. Out of all that, you've got pretty much everything you need to write the proofs correctly, okay, on that sheet of paper. You got everything to look for. Everything is going to be worked on the diagrams. All right? That's why you need to make sure where you're doing the homework, have it out. Where you're doing the classwork, have it out. Anything like that, from now until we get done with triangles, you need to have that sheet out. Okay? Now, what I'm going to show you, what we're going to do is I got at least 3 proofs I'll go through. I got 4 up there, but I don't know if I'll go through all of them. Because the whole idea today is taking what you did on Tuesday and now creating formal proofs for them. 2-column, paragraph, however you want to write. Okay? What I'm giving you here, these are like your basic steps to go through as you're writing these. Okay? I think I have 5 steps. All right. First thing is always going to be whatever's given to you, you go to your picture and you mark it up. The majority of the work on these problems is done on the picture. You go to picture, you mark off what's congruent, sides, angles, whatever. Okay, obviously, like if I gave you perpendicular lines, like the whole word perpendicular I can't mark on there, but I could put my 90-degree marker. If I'm giving you a bisector, I can put those bisectors. But the first thing is always going to be deal strictly with the givens. Okay, and that I told you that last chapter too. You know, when you work with a proof, you want to manipulate the givens as much as you can before you move beyond them. All right, after that, let's go through all the pictures we just went through. We did between Tuesday and today. Look for reflexes, vertical angles. Look for those parallel lines given. Okay? Because usually, with the proofs you guys are working on, once you get through the first two steps, you're probably going to have enough information marked congruent, like you're going to have enough pairs of angles congruent, enough pairs of sides congruent, for you to go through, all right, and pick one of those four ways to do it. All right, obviously, if you got a right triangle, you could use the HL, but it's probably going to fall within the realm of side, 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 angle, or angle, side first. Okay, with HL being like the kind of last step if you can't see any of the others. All right, and once you get to this part, like I haven't written anything. Like if I'm doing this proof, when I get to this part, I would not have written anything in terms of the two columns, like a paragraph or anything. All I would have strictly been doing is marking congruent marks on my picture and then looking at it like you would have done on the warm-up and like you would have done on the homework yesterday or Tuesday. And just pick if it was side, 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 so on and so on. So up until now, it's almost like doing the others. All right. Fourth thing is organize it into a proof. This is basically the writing step. What you'll see is when I do these, at least in the beginning, like probably the ones today, as I go through steps 1 and 2, I'll probably label each thing I mark as like step 1, step 2, step 3, so on, so on. So I know exactly what I'm going to put into my proof. And guys, anything you mark on the diagram needs to become a statement in your proof. All right, I told you about it the other day. I said, look, most people, the biggest mistake they make is they know how to work through them. They understand which way would prove the triangle is congruent in terms of like side, side, side and stuff. But they get to the writing the proof out and they think they can't do it, even though getting to this step, you technically have. You just have to take everything you mark and write it out. You mark angle A is congruent to B on your picture, right. Angle A is congruent to angle B. Okay? I'm sorry, do I need to sit there? It's okay, everyone get those down? No? Go ahead and do that. And then there's going to be, like I said, at least 3 proofs. Because guys, the more proofs you see, the more you can go back to as examples, the easier they should become. The more you see written out. All right? And I know like the proof writing stuff, not the most exciting thing in the world, right? But to be able to do it, you have to go through the examples. You have to just practice them. Because what will happen is you'll start to see these things repeat. Okay, you'll start to see certain statements repeat, certain reasons repeat. Those are going to be the things that will be on the test. That's kind of what you need. All right? Can I go on yet? Good enough? Trees is perfect. All right, so go ahead and copy down before I start working through it. I'm going to talk through it. I don't want you writing while I'm going through all the steps here. I'm going to try and go through it like fairly slowly. and do it in the 4 steps that I had written up there, just so you see how they correspond to it. By the last one, if I start going too fast or anything, let me know. All these right now should end with the proof statement saying I want 2 triangles to be congruent. And really the first thing you should do, I know I didn't have it listed there, make sure you realize which 2 triangles they're asking about being congruent. Okay, because sometimes they could overlap and there might be, 4 or 5 triangles that look like they exist, but you just got to realize which ones. Like this one's not hard because it's talking about this triangle here and that one there. Okay, so according to what I had on the 4 steps, the first thing would be you go to the picture, you mark off whatever's given to you. This one's already done, it's already in the picture. On the test, guys, I won't have these. It's going to be up to you to mark it. So I would say, look, I know AB is congruent to CD. First thing, those 2 are parallel. That would be the whole first step. Okay, now we talked about in the last chapter, guys, the givens. In terms of writing the whole statements and reasons things, you can put those together in one step if you want. If you want to separate them, that's fine. The point of separating them is so that you understand which giving you're looking at and which one you're manipulating. Okay, because if you got 2 of them and you just start doing stuff, sometimes people can't follow what you're doing. All right, so that would be the whole first step is marking that. Second thing says what I have in the second step. Okay, so yeah, so you would go on there and anything that came up on the 5 things that were my common properties, things to look for, that stuff, now's where you'd start marking. What comes up that is on there? Look at them. Look at your list, guys. This is how you have to do it. Look at your list. Is what? What's reflected? And triangles aren't reflected. What does the reflexive property give you? What's that? But I'm just saying. No. From the other day, though, you should add pictures there. Is that what we're going to say? The alternate here? All right, we'll do that and we'll come back to you in a second. All right, so you're saying the alternate here angles, right? Because I've got parallel lines. Okay, so since I've got this, guys, I said, look, if you got parallel lines, you're going to mark your alternate here angles. They've nicely labeled these angles, angle 1 and angle 2. So we just mark those right there.
All I have on my notes on this thing was reflective property. And then they made a picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was marked congruent on the picture? Okay. That word's probably not a good word to use, but the line, you're talking about this one, right?
So the
Okay.
AC.
Yeah, AC is congruent to AC. But here's the thing, when you're saying the triangles are reflexive, it's not really true. The whole reflexive property is saying something is equal to itself. That's why you can say AC is equal to AC. It's congruent to itself. This triangle is congruent to itself, but that's really good. Okay. So it's just the wording is right. You guys are identifying the right thing. That's fine. Okay. It's just verbal. All right. So let me see here. That was step 1. The second thing I marked was right there. That was the third thing. Okay. And what I'll do is on these guys, I kind of label them just so I know. This is my first statement. This is my second statement because that's the second thing I marked off on my picture. That's my third statement. All right, now there's nothing else to match up with. I don't have vertical angles. I don't have perpendicular lines. Nothing else that's reflexive. None of that. Okay? So I would be to the point now where I'm on step 3, where I'm saying, look, pick one of the ways. Pick one of these to decide if those two triangles are congruent. All right? Is there enough information marked off for me to do it? First off, yeah. Which way would it be? Be side angle side. So I know I'm going to use that one to say that statement. That's the fourth thing I did, so this is the 4-step proof. So if I write this out, basically in terms of me translating it into 2 columns, wherever I got the 1 at over here, that's what I'm writing first. So 1 is my givens. Okay? Again, on the picture, the second thing I marked, I put a little 2 by it, were those angles. Those are my alternate interior angles. And remember, alternate interior angles is the reason, right? Alternate interior angles are congruent. Me stating which 2 angles are congruent goes here, which are 1 and 2. All right? If you guys want to do that in your pictures, that's fine as long as I see it. Like instead of having to say angle B, AC, if you just want to put a 1 and 2 in there, that's okay. Just make sure it's clearly labeled because that's not in every picture. The third thing was that segment where I got my little 3 next to. So AC congruent AC, and that's reflexive. All right, and then the fourth thing was we were done with it. We picked away. We knew side angle side worked. So my 4th step is saying that my 2 triangles are congruent. So that's the entire proof. All right, that's about the average length for the proofs in here. For this stuff, it's about 4. Some of these are going to be 3 steps. Some might be 5. Usually on the homework, the highest you'll probably get is maybe a 6-step proof, maybe. But that won't be for the stuff today. That will be the stuff we'll talk about tomorrow. No. As long as those are there, and as long as you start with your givens and end with that, the other 2 will. Okay? All right. The next one is going to be this one. So again, go ahead and draw it out first before I start messing with it. I'll leave it out there for a second in case you're still writing that down. Can I erase this guy? Can I erase all that? All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this one. Okay, so again, going through the steps. First step would be doing your givens, marking off what's given to you. Again, a lot of times in the book, they'll go ahead and do it, but it's still a good habit to go redo it again. So the givens would be AC is congruent to BC, right there. All right, I'm putting a 1 by because that's going to be my first step. Just reminding myself I start with the given. And the other one's M is the midpoint of AB. So if I actually mark this on the picture, the only thing I can actually mark is the word midpoint. Okay? By doing the actual action of what a midpoint is and what the result of having a midpoint is would be an extra step. This happens a lot. if they give you a midpoint, there's an automatic thing where people mark congruent figures, like the congruent segments, and they just think it's encompassed within that part. Okay, just understand they're separate steps. What's that? I will once I mark them off. Because, right, because since this is the midpoint of this segment, which two segments are congruent to each other? AM and MB. Okay, and as soon as I put those marks on there, that becomes my second step. All right, so just understand that this being given is just putting the word to that point. The actual marking of these segments being congruent is a whole separate statement. All right. Is there anything else from the whole common figure sheet stuff that I can mark off here? I got the reflexive still, right? I got it. Okay. So that's where we messed step 3. There's anything else I really need to mark off? Because do I have enough right there to say that this triangle is congruent to that one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, why? The side says that. So this is, again, just a 4-step proof. Okay? I guess that's about the length of it. I don't know right triangle. The only other thing I know is angle A and B are congruent, but we haven't covered that yet, so I wouldn't expect you to do that. And that would just give you an alternate to sides. If I had these two congruent, then I could do side angles also. But we haven't talked about that yet, so I wouldn't expect that. All right, so statements and reasons. Okay, so first thing was the given, which again, if you group them together, that's fine. All right, second thing that I'm going to write out, again, according to what I marked over here is AM congruent to MB. All right, what am I going to put for a reason there? What told me those were congruent? What? The midpoint, right? So definition of midpoint. Third thing was that side. So CM and CM were congruent. What's the reason for that again? The reflexive one. And then the last part was the side, side, side. Okay. All right. The next one that I'm going to have, let's see what it is first. I think I want you to do this one, guys, kind of on your own. You can write it out, so don't think it's that long. Yeah. Okay, so this one right here. We'll give you a little tiny bit of time. See if you can do this one on your own. It's not a big one. Most of these are not long proofs. Okay? So go ahead and copy it down first. And if anyone gets it done, it is, okay, so it was only 3 steps. Like I said, you're going to have some that are 3 steps. Where it's like one thing you had to add. Maybe like a vertical angle in this case, or maybe a reflective thing. Okay? But that's what it should have been, guys. That is correct. Okay? And if you didn't, like on stepped over there, if you didn't put PTQ or PTP or something with 3 letters, you really needed to add numbers to it. If you just said that, that's not correct. Yeah, just because of the whole fact, right? Because angle T could be this one, this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, this one. Okay? So There's a whole bunch of different ones it could be. You have to make sure you clarify. And guys, it was this triangle and this one. Hopefully you realize. All right. And like I said, if you put 1 and 2 there, you could have put angle 1, congruence angle 2. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, let me do this real quick, because this one I can do in 3 steps also. If you want to write it out, just so you have one written out with the whole parallel line, just so you can see an example exactly of what it'll look like when parallel lines are given to you. Because right now you got one with midpoint, you got one vertical angles in there, now we got one with parallel lines given to you. Okay, so you see a little bit of everything we've talked about in terms of common properties. And it's only going to be 3 steps. It's quick. And the whole reason it's 3 steps is because when you have parallel lines in this kind of picture, which you should have written down on the common properties, like it should be, there should be one where you've got the parallel lines here in this kind of picture. There's automatically 2 pairs of alternate interior angles you can pull out. Okay? If you want to, in this case, add the vertical angles, that would become a 4th step. It's not necessary. Again, it will give you an alternate way to do them. Because if I do this step, like if I go through it, right, my first step is that, which they have marked off. My second step is going to come directly from the fact that I got parallel lines. Because if I do that, I've got alternate interior angles. So that's one set. That's another set. I've got angle side already. I don't need to do it anymore. What a lot of people do in this case to make it a little bit longer, it's fine. Okay, this is just the shortest way to do it. Is maybe they won't add this set and they'll do the vertical angles. If you do it that way, that would be 4 steps and you would end with angle side angle. That's fine, that's a possibility. I could keep that set right there, do vertical angles and still have angle side. There's a few different options in this case. It's just in terms of me writing it out, I tend to do whatever's the quickest. Okay? Or I try to at least. So in this case here, guys, this is only going to be, because that's step 2, and then step 3 will just be angle side. So it's another just 3 steps. If you want to do it in this method. So if I wrote this out, it would be FH L 2. Remember, guys, in pictures like this, right? This angle here, that one, and those 2 up there, they're the only angles there. That's the time you're allowed to use the 1 letter. So I can do like angle K is congruence angle H. Angle F is congruence angle L. That's fine. It's just, if you did the vertical angles though, you would have to use either 3 letters or number them like 1 and 2 or something like that. Okay, because there's 4 angles at that point G. It's actually more, but. Alright, so those alternate interior angles are congruent, and then that was it. It's more than 4 if you do. You have vertical angles to it. It's just not necessary. I will. Okay. All right, so the work tonight, guys, is in the book, okay? It should be a combination, I think, if I remember correctly, it's a combination of writing some out of your own plus some fill in the blanks. All right? Just try and make sure you go through the steps as best you can. Do all the work on here first, like marking everything off you know is congruent, and anything that you mark congruent needs to translate into a statement. Even if you forget the reason, guys, there's absolutely no need for someone to come up to this picture, put congruent marks there, and not write it there. If you draw it on here, write it as a statement. It's just like, it should be like a 1-to-1 translation, guys. Okay?